Today is Cote d'Ivoire's presidential election. Join us for live coverage, debates, and reports, minute by minute as election transpires. 5 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Ivorian presidency is on. Incumbent Alassane Ouattara campaigns to retain her seat. Main rival and second female on the list, former First Lady Simone Bagbo, and 3 other contenders vie for the presidency. Today, over 8 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Cote d'Ivoire's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Starting 6 a.m. Cote d'Ivoire decides. WADR covers.
Well, it's 5 minutes past the top of the hour. Good afternoon to you here in Dakar, you in Accra and beyond. Thank you so much for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar and online at WADR.org. Welcome to the second edition of our live coverage of the 2025 presidential election in Cote d'Ivoire. I am Imo Edet, and for the next 60 minutes, we'll be bringing you updates, reports, and guest interviews, even here in the studio. From field, more information coming in so far. Voting is ongoing both on ground in Cote d'Ivoire and in the diaspora. We'll be bringing you some conversations we had with the voters. Well, don't forget, this year's election has 5 contenders, including the incumbent President Alassane Ouattara. There are also 2 women contenders vying for the top job. Let's cross over now to Cote d'Ivoire to hear from the Minister of Transport. Speaking earlier to our team over there, this is Amadou Kone.
Je voudrais féliciter la population de la région de Bekel, en particulier celle de Boaké.
I would like to congratulate the population of the region of Bekel, in particular those of Boaké, Djibounois and Brobo, for this beautiful campaign that we have done for a few days. I would like to congratulate everyone, but also to wish no accident and to wish that the day ends without accident. I note for today's date, in the polling stations that I visited, that we have an important mobilization of voters in the polling stations. A good influence is to tell the voters, those who have not yet come, that the vote continues until 6 p.m. for the closing of the polling stations. I am confident that these elections will take place well so that we can fight together. Today is the 25th of October. There is the 26th that comes tomorrow. The 25th will be behind us in a few hours. We all have to work together for the next 5 years, make Cote d'Ivoire a great country, and I think it's the dream of all Ivorians. That's what is expected of our young people, especially who need to work, who need to go to school, to work, and therefore ask everyone to support the momentum that is there. I really note a form of solidarity and cohesion here. We ask all the partisans of different camps that we can maintain after the results this cohesion, that we can celebrate Cote d'Ivoire together.
Après les résultats, donc cette cohésion, que nous puissions célébrer ensemble la Côte d'Ivoire et la République.
Well, there you have it, the Minister of Transport there, Kone, speaking about the election that is ongoing. Well, as Ivorians prepare or are voting in this contentious presidential election, the country's Catholic bishops issued a stark and unprecedented warning yesterday, cautioning that the nation stands on the brink of political unrest. And in a strongly worded communique released on the eve of the vote, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Cote d'Ivoire declared in quote now, "The fire is lit, the embers are smoking," a metaphor that underscores the gravity of the current political climate. The statement signed collectively by the country's archbishops and bishops depart from the church traditionally neutral posture and signals deep concern over the trajectory of the electoral process. Well, we do have our in-house guest. Let's just quickly bring him on board and allow him to share a few thoughts on this. Well, joining us, and he's a friend of the house in the studio here, Dr. Sani Ibrahim, a former parliamentarian and indeed a former election observer. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
Well, I mean, build up to this election, we saw a whole lot happening in Cote d'Ivoire. I mean, characterizing even the country's political landscape. Well, How would you say the country were able to pull it off and get this election ongoing?
Have they pulled it off? As yet, can we say it? I'm not sure we can say it yet in view of what we've heard from the Catholic bishop. But it's not the first time he's speaking out, warning and things like that. In fact, such declaration statements probably produce the thinking that there's also some kind of religious tension ongoing between Catholics and Muslims, since the president is a Muslim. I'm not sure that it was the time to make such a statement. I think it's such a fiery statement. We'll have to call it what to call it. But he knew what he was saying, I'm sure. And because he has his own followers who come and he probably listens to them and knows what is going on.
Well, just before we cross over to our correspondent in Accra, we've seen several prominent opposition figures excluded from this race. What implications do you think this will have on the fairness and legitimacy in this election, sir?
Yes, I think this is a recurrent thing in Africa. I think we have to make laws that we have to abide by. And as simple as that. What I know from the electoral code, the Cote Electoral, as they call it, is when you have been sentenced, whatever is the sentence, there are clear clauses in the law. Then you can't take part. You're taken out of the electoral list. I'll give the example of the candidate for PDCI, Tidjane Thiam.
Yeah.
The Code of Nationality of Cote d'Ivoire says that if you voluntarily take up another nationality, then you lose your Ivorian nationality. This is what the and it was from 1961. It's been changed several times, but that clause has always been there, that if you take up voluntarily, if you were born in a country, in a different country, of course you may get that nationality, but then you don't lose your Ivorian nationality if your parents are Ivorians. But if it is your decision, when you come of age, you take the decision to say, okay, I'm taking up that nationality, you lose your Ivorian nationality. I think he overlooked that and did not correct that in time. I think that's the problem. Obviously, we can maybe debate later on whether there should have been a political correction of that agreement so as to allow an open election. That is also a debate. Yeah.
All right, sir. Let me hold you there as we cross over to Accra, where Nadede is on standby to bring us update. Hello, Nadede.
Hello, Imo.
Yes. How is voting going where you are?
Well, voting is still underway. Quite a number of people have been able to cast their votes. Earlier in the morning when we spoke, you had asked about the average time it takes people to be
vote.
able to cast their ballots. Yes, it takes about 5 minutes from what our electoral officials tell us. It takes about 5 minutes if there is no struggle to locate the voter's name. But if there's a bit of a challenge, it can take between 5 to 7 minutes. But what happens is that when you get there, you go and verify. They need to authenticate whether you are indeed the person coming to cast your ballot. They will identify your name on the list, and subsequently your biometric details will equally be verified. And then you go ahead and cast your ballot, and then you leave. I mean, when you are done, you can make your way out of the premises, or you choose to stay behind. There are quite a number of people who have chosen to stay behind. Not too long ago, the Ivorian ambassador to Ghana, made his way here to also cast his ballot in the person of His Excellence Asielu Felix Tano. He made his way here to cast his ballot. Smooth process. He also encouraged Ivorians who are in Ghana and are yet to cast their ballots to come and do so. But he also acknowledges that it's not mandatory, but it is good to participate in this civic exercise. And so generally, that's what it's been. It's been very smooth, peaceful atmosphere. The various representatives of the other contestants are also here, monitoring closely to be sure that the numbers that will be reported at the end of the day will truly represent what they have equally captured on their list. So for now, still very peaceful, smooth process, and it's very quiet here in Accra.
Well, you talked about people hanging around after voting. What is this really for? To be able to take part in the vote counting, I guess?
I believe so, because here in Ghana, most often a similar thing happens when voting is done. There are people who hang around and wait for the exercise to be done so that they can observe things for themselves. So I believe it is the same thing happening here as well. Some of the voters I spoke to indicated that for them it was important that they also participated in this exercise because it is their civic responsibility and they want the best for their country. Other representatives of the key political parties here too are very confident, especially those coming from the camp of Alassane Ouattara. They are very confident of, emerging victorious at the end of the day. And basically, that is what's happening here.
Indeed. Well, you talked about remember we talked about the number of voters this morning, and the chairman of the election there gave the figure above 1,000. Are we getting close to that in terms of the people that have churned out so far?
Not yet. I haven't gotten the official figures with regard to the number of people who have voted yet, but from my cursory look, we have not gotten to 1,000 yet.
All right, Nadidi, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
In addition, one thing I need to add is that from what we understand, the voting center in Ghana is not just at the Ivorian embassy here in Accra. We understand that there's also a polling station, a voting center in Kumasi, as well as in Takrady, because they say that they have a good population, a good number when it comes to the population of the Ivorian community in those areas as well. So I can speak to the presence of the voting center in Kumasi. The president of the Ivorian community in Ghana also mentioned Takrady as one of the centers where voting is also taking place. But I've not been able to verify that from the election officials here, but at least they verified to me that of Kumasi having a polling station and a voting center as well to cater for Ivorians in that community. And to many may not necessarily come as a surprise, beyond the fact that, yes, there's a population there, you'd realize that there are some Ivorians who have Ghanaian heritage, and they have some linkage with the Akant here. And so you find that there's an area in Ivory Coast or La Cote d'Ivoire called Kumasi, so it's not surprising. And the Ivorian ambassador did mention that he has his ancestral roots from here in Ghana as well. So there are some linkages with the Ghanaians and Ivorians as well. So basically that's it,
Indeed, Nadide, thank you so much. And it's good to know that it's not just in Accra that the voting is happening. Elsewhere in Kumasi and Takrady, 3 centers in Ghana there. Nadide, thank you for that information. Well, let's cross over now to Abidjan, Cote, to be precise, where Francis Boniface is on standby. Francis, good afternoon, and what's the update from your end?
Good afternoon. From my end, it remains the same. It's still very calm in the Cote area of Abidjan. President Alassane Ouattara has just voted at a center here in Cote, and he made some statements after that.
What did he say? I mean, was there anything different?
Generally, it's the usual thing you expect from a sitting head of state, calling for peace, for calm, for people to go out and vote, and to be assured that the whole process will be peaceful. Although he went a bit further to also talk about the possibility that the election results should be out by tomorrow. Now, one cannot say whether he was speaking on behalf of the Electoral Commission or he was speaking in his quality as president, but it sounded a little bit not so what you expect from a head of state on a day like this.
Well, don't you think maybe that could have come to calm the nerve of the population, knowing how tense the entire atmosphere is?
Yeah, knowing how tense the entire atmosphere is, yes, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, but I also think the delivery and the presentation also matters. But in this case, that was exactly what played out. He spoke really briefly, so probably it's not wise to read too much meaning into it because it was a very brief speech, and he departed.
Well, just before I let you go, Francis, has the numbers changed from what we saw in the morning when we spoke?
Yeah, the numbers have definitely changed. There is a lot more people right now. The place is busy. Where we are right now is really busy compared to what happened in the morning. In the morning, it was just a trickle, like I said earlier, during the call in the morning. But right now, we have a lot of people right now at the voting center.
I'm very keen about knowing the number of young people, not like precise number per se, but are we seeing some of them coming out? Looking at the fact that they are even the ones that are feeling disgruntled about the administration of some sort. Are we seeing young people, young adults, new voters coming out for this?
I think it's very balanced. Yes,
Okay.
we're seeing a lot of young people, but we're also seeing a lot of more older people. It's a very balanced outlook out here. I don't think one demographic is really doing better than the other, at least for where we are. It's a very balanced demographic that we are looking at here.
Very well, Francis. Thank you so much for your time. We'll be talking in the course of the broadcast. Well, let's come back to the studio here where we still have Dr. San. I mean, you've heard the updates from Ghana and from Cote, and particularly in Ghana, 3 centers because of the population of Ivorians in that country. And of course, the comment made by the president himself while voting. I would like to know what you think are the key issues motivating voters this year, particularly looking at the build-up to this election.
I think we have to look at this election as a referendum for Alassane Ouattara. Was he right not to open up the election? Stick to what he says the law? Is he using the law? Did they deliberately let Tijan Cham not re-register in the list? Well, it's difficult to say. We don't know. When he says, I think it's a clumsy statement to say that the result might be out tomorrow. I've forgotten the exact in some countries, the media can tell you the results.
No, you have observed this election there.
Yeah.
Did you say the same thing?
No, he didn't say. I led the UMOA, YMU in English, Union Économique et Monétaire West Africaine, mission of observation for the 2015 election. And yes, by the following day, we knew the race. I mean, who was going to win. I mean, because the media could say. But in some countries, you can't say. The media. I was in Togo in 2017. The media could not say. We're not allowed to give figures. It depends on countries where you are. But of course, in the Western world, the media can say whatever they've seen. Now, the real issue here is we know Ouattara, I mean, that's what I feel, is going to win. Obviously, there are no heavyweights to punch there with him.
You think even the former First Lady can even do a little punch?
Come on. Come on, he's going to win that. We know it. But what are the figures for him in that election? That is the interesting stats we want to see. to know about. But I don't think there is any issue or any debate on who is going to win. I mean, I don't expect. It's not really an election for me. I mean, I think there should have been a political agreement, dialogue to bring in all the other heavyweights so that they could vote. I mean, if you take the case of Laurent Gbagbo, he was convicted in the case of the bank robbery in Bouaké, but he was. So if you after conviction you get you get deleted from the electoral vote list. He was pardoned in 2022 by Alassane Ouattara, but you know. Being pardoned doesn't allow you to take part in the election. It's only an amnesty. And that's the difference is the amnesty is a law. It has to go through Parliament. Yeah. So it kind of deletes all from your criminal records, all the charges against you. It
makes you a free man.
You're free. You're new, as if you'd never done anything wrong. At least that thing that you were sentenced for. But that wasn't an amnesty. It wasn't an amnesty. So I think Ouattara should have gone the step further and have an amnesty for Gbagbo. That's my view. So it opens up and it brings peace in the country.
Well, I do have more questions for you, Dr. Sani, here. But let's cross over to the Ivorian embassy here in Dakar as we hear from the ambassador speaking on the voting process so far.
La première impression d'abord, c'est un certain engouement d'abord à l'accueil.
First of all, the first impression is a certain enthusiasm, the welcome. I feel a lot of enthusiasm with a calm responsibility, and that's already the first impression. I just completed my civic duty and I had to withdraw my voter card. So I withdrew my voter card on the spot because I couldn't do it before. And then I proceeded to vote in a civic way. I am very proud of my country. It has been voting since 1960. It is not the first operation. The country is used to elections, each one with his fortune, but with a lot of pride and responsibility. Voting to choose the leader who wants to entrust the destiny of his country for the next 5 years. Here, roughly, this superstition includes Senegal, Mauritania, and Zikenshire. Basically, that's 5,000 voters. It's a large electoral district. So here, he will get 3,000 votes, and then Montreal will account for about 1,500, and the rest will make up the difference. So it's a large constituency in terms of the diaspora. You see, the composition is largely made up of young people because we have a huge number of students here. So it's a very, very large electoral district in terms of the diaspora. It's a normal day. There are witches, there are duties. Those who for different choices, I think they will stay at home quietly. And that's it, in the respect of everyone's choice.
Je pense qu'ils restent chez eux tranquillement. Et voilà, dans le respect des choix de chacun.
Well, there you have it, the Ivorian ambassador here to Senegal speaking on the voting process so far. Well, staying in Dakar here, we do have Sankule Janko online at the embassy. Sankule, what's going on where you are?
Good afternoon, Imo. Well, I mean, I'm here, like you rightly said, at the Ivorian embassy in Dakar, and the voting process is still ongoing. Just like we spoke in the morning, Ivorians are still here, coming in their numbers to exercise their civic duty, that is, to cast their vote in this 2025 presidential election. Just as you left it in the morning, it's still the same. People are coming in numbers to, calmly going in to cast their vote and then leave. That's what is happening here at the moment.
Well, what are the interesting things that you have heard from some of the interactions you've had with the voters? Perhaps newbies, people who have voted for the first time, people who have voted all of their life. I mean, what are the different statements you've heard from these set of people?
Interestingly, I've spoken to two people, two different voters. So that is this lady that we spoke to who is voting for the first time. I mean, somewhere in her early 30s, she said this is the first time she's voting because she finds this election to be very, very important. But she wouldn't say why, but she knows that it is a very important election for her, and then she feels the need to come and cast her vote and to exercise her civic duty. We spoke to another young man, very interesting. This is his second time voting, but he said he's here to vote because he feels like there's a need for Ivorians to make that change. Well, I wouldn't go into detail as to what he means by that because it's election day. But for him, what he feels is like in the past 5 years, nothing much has changed. And it is important for Ivorians to make that decision so that they will vote in someone who perhaps will improve the lives and livelihoods of Ivorians. I mean, so in very interesting opinions from some of the voters we've spoken to so far.
Well, the numbers you mentioned in the morning were quite low. Have we seen an increase so far this 12:30?
Well, interestingly, I mean, I think the numbers have, of course, increased because in the morning, but I also think that there are two reasons perhaps why that is. There are some who came in the morning and some, because it's a bit hot here, maybe some would expect some of the voters to come perhaps later in the evening when the sun is a bit cooler. But the numbers more or less, of course, have increased compared to when we first spoke in the morning. Overall, Imo, here there are, 9 ballot boxes, just for you to know.
Okay.
And 4 of these ballot boxes are all, stationed in one room, and then the other 5 are in different various rooms where Ivorians will come and vote. Again, we have, like I said, about 5,000 registered voters here. A little over 3,000, less than 4,000 are Ivorians based in Senegalese, and a little over 1,000 are Ivorians based in Mauritania who also have to come here in Dakar to cast their votes.
Well, thank you so much for the update. We'll be keeping in touch as we continue with the coverage.
Before I go, Imo, interestingly, we've also spoken to the president of the Electoral Commission here in Senegal and Mauritania, that is Baba Kone.
Okay.
And what he made us to understand is that by sharp 6 o'clock, voting will end. And let's say by 6:45, we could expect provisional results because counting will commence immediately when voting closes at 6 p.m.
Well, that brings me to what we experience in Ghana, where people who have voted are hanging around perhaps to be part of the vote, the counting process. Is this likely what will play out here in Dakar?
Perhaps it could be the case, but might be later in the evening. But for now, all the voters we've seen, because I'm standing right in front of the embassy to talk to you, you can see people walking in, and immediately after casting their votes, and all they do is they'll quietly walk away and go. So you don't see people hanging around compared to that of Accra. But for now here, what people do is once they've cast their vote, they just peacefully walk away, and that's what we've seen so far. Perhaps in the evening, when people expect result counting, maybe they might hang around. But for now, that is not the case. Once people are done voting, they quietly leave, sir.
Indeed. Thank you so much for the updates. And it's quite interesting to know that we have people waiting for the vote. Well, just before we cross over to Nigeria, Doctor, from all of this conversation we've heard, Ghana, Dakar here, how painful could it be after spending long hours in the queue just to exercise your rights and then vote, expecting some change in what you're voting for? And at the end of the day, after 4 or 5 years, you don't see it. How disappointing could that be?
Well, for any voter, if you don't win, obviously it is disappointing if your candidate doesn't win. But I think, interestingly, we would have been interesting to hear Ivorians who didn't come to vote. Why?
And perhaps the reason why they didn't come.
Why they didn't come to vote. Why? Are they boycotting, following up the boycott, and so on? That it would have been interesting to know, because obviously those who've come would be more likely to be positive about the process, but also those who don't come may not be that positive about the process. This is it. But of course, it will be frustrating for anybody who is in the losing side after voting, of course.
I can imagine. Well, let's cross over to Nigeria now, where we will be speaking with Ebenezer, as a regional political analyst. Mr. Ebenezer, thank you so much for your time, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, the entire process has been peaceful so far from all of the reports we've heard. Were you actually expecting this to be the case, or otherwise, looking at the build-up and some of the dramas that played out in the course of the preparation for the elections?
Well, I was expecting a very peaceful election in Ivory Coast. I think the maturity, the political maturity of the Ivorian people has always been demonstrated through this period, and we should not forget that the country had election-related crisis not long ago. So the added incentive for peace is there for every Ivorian to want this entire process concluded as soon as possible, and let the ordinary citizen get on with their lives.
Well, the question has been the key motivating factor for voters this year. 5 contenders, including the incumbent, 2 women. I mean, what else can pull this as a motivator for voters?
In Ivory Coast, the economy, really. The last 14, 15 years of Ouattara, they've been remarkable, economically speaking. So I know there are issues with the transitions. I know there are issues with the political inclusion within the country and all that. But when you look at our entire sub-region, when you look at the global economy, the level of growth Ivory Coast is generating on a year-on-year basis is remarkable, is unthinkable. And in a world that is more and more unstable, having a country that is stable with growth, with strong credit rating, one of the best in Africa now, is enough to want to motivate people to want to cast their vote for I believe the current regime.
Well, do you think this election can be described as fair, especially when key opposition figures have been excluded from the race?
So, election fairness is generally a matter of opinion, really. And my analysis is that for us Africans thinking about democratic processes, we have to weigh the position of how power is exercised in Africa. And the particular case of Ivory Coast is used to having a long-term president. The first president stayed close to more than 30 years in power. So Ouattara is not a new phenomenon in Ivory Coast. As for the exclusion of the opposition party, it seems the new political leader in Africa believe the way to retain power is to begin the election through the use of legal technicality to select who their opponents are going to be. Is this the fairest election possible? Absolutely not. But we should not kid ourselves in saying that, oh, this is the death of democracy, the crisis of everything. Donald Trump faced numerous legal challenges, and if it was not for the American voters, Donald Trump would not only have been excluded from the electoral process, but he will have been in jail now. So that people, that the regime in power is going to use whatever advantage they could to preserve their hold on power is a well-established fact. That democracy worldwide are struggling. As the French, they've been trying to form a government to pass a common budget. Has been difficult. The government in America has been shut down for close to 22 days now. Maybe we'll get 23. So yes, democratic governance globally is struggling. But the most important element for me is that even despite all this, the people in power in Africa, whether in Benin Republic, whether in Ivory Coast, whether in Nigeria, whether in Ghana, they see the need to still claim some form of legitimacy that is given by the people where those elections are held. When you contrast this with what is going on in Mali, for example, what is going on in Burkina Faso, or what is going on in Niger, the pictures are totally different. So we could put high premium. Will it have been fairer if everyone could compete and everything and all that? Yes, it would have been. It would have been. But this is not a totally undemocratic or compromised process. It's also should tell the Ivorian that despite the seemingly overwhelmed control of the ruling party on the political process, they still feel the need to conduct elections for legitimacy every 4 or 5 years. That is a sign that really no one is fully in control of the system, and that to me is enough space of freedom that can be expanded for better and stronger democratic institution in the country.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Damilare Ebenezer, regional political analyst, thank you so much for your time. And we'll be joining you much later in our broadcast. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, he talked about the shrinking opposition space in West African politics, and we are seeing that playing out even more. Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, the ruling party or ruling government are seemingly trying to suppress the opposition and make, in some cases, one party state or just two party state as it is.
Well, I think the statement by your correspondent in Nigeria is very interesting, and but I'll begin to say that I'm disturbed that in Africa, when the laws suit my situation, then it's a good law. But when it goes against my political interest, then it's not a good law. Maybe yes, maybe no. I believe that my real view is, in those situations, let's sit down and find a political compromise for the sake of peace. I agree with that. I think it may be not fair, or maybe it's fair, but let's find a political compromise so that it becomes an open election. So this is it. But I am disturbed to say that, okay, judicial technicalities are being used to suppress. I mean, the law was there and has been there for decades. I mean,
well, Doctor, let me hold you there and bring on board to also join us in this conversation Faith Alassane Ouattara, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy. Madam Faith, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. Two women are running in this year's election, and some say 60-40, some say it's almost 50-50. I mean, what do you make out of this?
Thank you very much. It's very interesting to note that women are running in this year's election, and I hope that is going on very well there. I looked at the capacities of both women and also looked at what Ivorians are saying concerning the capacity of the capacities of both women. So I want to go with both women having equal support. So I want to join the group that says it's 50-50. Though there's a little tilt, to 55, 45. But these two women are wonderful women. They are capable and able, and they have paid their dues, and Ivorians are also rooting behind them.
Well, Madam Faith, I would like to know why the case where when we have women, I mean, over the years, they've been the call for gender equality, they've been the call for 50-50 as we have here in the Senegalese parliament. And then in some cases, people want more vote, more representation by women. But when it's election day, fellow women don't come out to vote for women candidates. Why is this so? I mean, why do we keep on seeing this every election cycle?
So it's really not peculiar to Cote d'Ivoire. It's peculiar to Africa because of our culture and the patriarchal nature of our systems. Now, you know that a lot of women also submit to their husbands, to their fathers. On election day, you see that women actually want to come out and vote for fellow women, but you have a situation whereby election morning, the parents are calling the daughters to say, this is where I belong, this is where you should go to. I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. You also see a situation whereby husbands are calling wives to say, this is where I stand. I expect you to stand with me there. You know, and but by the time you go out to see, take the statistics of the people who have come out to vote, most times, more women actually come out to vote much more than men. But when the results are pooled, you see that women didn't quite vote for their fellow women. It's something we need to continuously talk about. We need to continuously engage our women folk and our men folk so that they can understand that when it comes to election, it is about the individual. Because as a voter, you register as a voter. You don't register as a family member of a particular family, but as a woman or as a man, you register individually. So it's important we know that some of the decisions or actions that women take when it comes to election should also be respected without looking at whether the person is the wife to a man or the daughter to another person, and looking at the overall repercussion that comes for women who go against the heads of their families.
Well, I do have Dr. Sani Ibrahim here with me. He's been our guest since we started the broadcast this afternoon, and he would like to throw a question at you, and I'm sure, Doctor, please go ahead.
Yes, hello there. Hello there. Yeah, look, from listening to the reasons you've developed, can we say the election is a foregone conclusion, and that at the end of the day, the two women will come out with the status of also run?
Yeah, Madam Faye, did you get that?
I didn't quite get that.
I mean, and also run status is, he was part.
Yeah, they were part of the election.
But had never a chance of winning.
That we made effort to contest.
So you know that if you look at elections across Africa, there are a lot of things that are coming up, especially for women's participation. It's no longer you're not able to just go to the polls and say, this person is the one that is to come out victorious from an election. Because by the time the polls come in, the results come in, there are some dynamics that you see that may actually change the whole narrative. The fact that you have two women, you know, and they are front lines. It's not that it's not like they are it's like they're not recognized or people don't know that women are running. There are some elections across Africa. You won't even see, there may just be one woman, but you won't even feel the impact of the woman running. I've had cases where women ran even in Nigeria during even party primaries. This woman had, you know, party agents, campaign directors. But at the end of the day, there was just only one vote that was counted for that particular woman. So you see that they are changing. So I won't be surprised if at the end of the day, one of those two women, you know, come up either winning the election or coming up as the first runner-up. I won't be surprised to see that, because that's what we are learning and we are seeing every day as our democracy is maturing and improving and progressing within African countries.
But can we find a way to make the men folk or the male folks support women? I mean, we've seen some countries in East Africa where women are, you know, at the forefront of it, whether you are a family woman, whether you're a mother. Can we see that play out in this part of Africa?
Of course, yes, we can find a way, and that's why enlightenment and education comes in. We need to be able to break the barriers. A lot of people still feel, especially traditional settings and within this patriarchal nature that we have, that a woman cannot be the head of a man. So you go to communities and then they're looking for people who will represent, you know, communities, and they're saying, oh, it is not in my community that you will see a woman, you know, going out to the public to say that it is a woman that is representing the men. So it's something we need to continuously do. You also agree with me that in the past, you couldn't even actually think of a woman going to pick up party nomination forms to run for election. In Cote d'Ivoire, you have 50% representation in parliament. Right now in Nigeria, we are trying to get reserved seats for women. Because since 1999 that we started this, our democracy, we have seen that it has decreasingly having women within parliament. And from 1999 till date, we have only had one female, Speaker of the House of Reps that didn't even complete her tenure. So we need to
Patricia
engage people and deliberately and intentionally engage men, traditional rulers, engage our boys from home to understand that your sister is capable to be a leader and she needs your support. Men boys who grow up to be young men need to come with this orientation and understand that because she is a woman does not make her incapable of being president, of being chairperson, or even being, governor or mayor in counties. So we need to continuously have that education and have people. And also, one thing I found that is that a lot of people, some very enlightened, educated men, some, I'm not saying all, in their closets, they agree that women should be in position to lead. But when they come out amongst their peers, they don't want to be seen as that one
supporting,
who is pushing for it. For instance, we asked somebody, said, okay, you are a senator. Now we are asking for reserved seats for women. Are you willing to step down so that a woman from your constituency can take up that position? And he didn't give us an answer.
All right.
But this is somebody that said, I'm in support of the reserved seats for women. So amongst them is going to support a woman to be able to take up those positions. So these are fundamental questions we need answers to. But importantly, we need to be deliberate about targeting young boys who turn up to be men, early voters as they are entering to become voters. We need to educate them, make it part of our culture. Bring up those examples of women in the parts of Africa who have been warriors. They have been warriors, and they led men to war, and they came back successful. We should be able to project that kind of image and allow our young ones as they grow to understand that it is not weakness for a man to support a woman in the position of leadership.
Madam Fedo Sai Nwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy in Nigeria. Thank you so much for your insight and being a part of the program.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Well, Dr. Sane, thank you so much.
We have to admire her faith in women, really. I mean, she's expressed that faith wonderfully. Really.
And then she also mentioned that sometimes men in the closet can actually support women, but in the open, it's a problem.
Yes, she was very clear, and I think it's historical, cultural, and all. She gave good arguments. Type of situation of a woman winning. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did win in Liberia. I believe the first female president in the world. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember any other world. Maybe there was one, but I don't remember of any. So,
we do have in Czech Republic.
Before Ellen Johnson Sirleaf?
Before.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, but again, really, it was remarkable. It can happen, but in this precise case, because I know the political context in Cote d'Ivoire, and I know also a little bit the demographic and the culture, I don't think those two women as yet have a chance to win.
Well, as we round up this conversation, let's look at the role of state institutions such as the Electoral Commission, the Constitutional Court playing in the process. How independent do you think people perceive them to be?
It's tough for them to be independent.
Why do you say so?
No, because I've sat with the Electoral Commission in Cote d'Ivoire. I also watched the 2010 elections, how the Electoral Commission behaved. In 2015, I sat with them. I was the head of the Electoral Observation Mission in Cote d'Ivoire, so I know how things happen. It's tough for them to be independent. They're appointees by the president, and they're not opponents to the president. And we have in Africa all processes have been politicized to the point of if you're in such a position. I mean, look at what happened when in 2010 the head of the Constitutional Court just opposed the results. Whether they were fair or not is not the question. But the UN certified the election. He opposed, and he said no, and he was going to change them. And but then he didn't succeed in that. So it's difficult to have strong. We still have to have strong institutions that can resist the head of state. It's too much strong in Africa. The head of state is really too strong.
Indeed, that's the much we can take on this edition of our live coverage. Dr. Sani Ibrahim, thank you so much for being a part of this edition, and we appreciate the fact that when we call on you on every election, I mean, you're always here to back us up. Thank you so much again for your time.
It's my pleasure. Indeed.
Well, as voting continues in Cote d'Ivoire and across the world, especially with the diaspora vote, a rigorous economist, a pragmatic statesman, the incumbent himself, Alassane Ouattara, is the fifth person in this election, and he is known simply as Ado, and he was born on January 1, 1942 in Dimbokro, in the center of the country. Well, a creed that will guide his entire career was when he grew up in the house of a civil servant. Well, Augustine Coley will be telling us about this man as we wrap up this edition of our broadcast. But we want to thank every one of you that have joined us both online, Facebook, YouTube, on radio, via satellite, our partner radios that have connected. We are grateful. Abdullah, thank you so much for blinking twice behind the glass. Mustafa Sek, thank you for drinking the cafe. I see you guys. Chris, Mary, and the rest of them. We'll be back much later in the day for more updates on the live coverage here in Dakar.
At 46, Ouattara became governor of the Central Bank of West African States before joining the International Monetary Fund. There he built his reputation as a rigorous and respected economist. In 1990, President Félix Houphouët-Boigny, the old man, called on him to help revive a struggling economy. Ouattara became prime minister, embodying modernity and technocratic efficiency.
Les difficultés économiques du moment.
The economic difficulties of the moment make us aware of the intensity of the effort that we must deploy relentlessly to ensure the prestige of our country and its international impact. This will be the mark of our deep gratitude for the gigantic work carried out for Cote d'Ivoire for nearly half a century by this great man who is the president of the PDCI RDA, President Félix Houphouët-Boigny.
But with Houphouët-Boigny's death in 1993, Cote d'Ivoire entered a period of turbulence. Ouattara, accused by some of not being truly Ivorian, became the target of bitter political struggles. Thus began a long period of isolation for him. Exiled and challenged, he did not give up. He funded the Rally of Republicans, WADR, and gradually established himself as the main opposition. After years of waiting, he won the presidential election against Laurent Gbagbo in 2010. But the veto turned tragic. A post-election crisis erupted, leaving more than 3,000 dead.
At least 3 bubbles, but the first one fell here. There were 6 injured and the 7th victim was dead on the ground. That's it. It was the children. In any case, we reassure you, and they said, if you don't have other solutions, we'll kill you.
Under Alassane Ouattara's presidency, Cote d'Ivoire experienced spectacular growth. Bridges, roads, stadiums, and industrial zones. The country was transformed. The numbers were positive and growth exceeded 7%. But this economic success came with criticism, a lack of political openness, incomplete reconciliation, and a muzzled opposition.